Hey everyone, welcome to the Customer Experience's new Business Battleground webinar. My name is Doran and I'm going to be your host today. Before we get into the content, I'm going to do some brief introductions to the presenters. And we'll talk a little bit about American Eagle, and then we'll get into what digital transformation is. So your presenters for today, first from American Eagle, is Rob Sanders. He's a senior strategist and business analyst. Rob's worked at American Eagle for 15 years. During the time, he sort of cultivated the reputation for successfully launching projects regardless of the client or project size. So some of Rob's most notable projects include internationalpaper.com, metlife.com, Dave Carnegie and Associates, and work on multiple National Football League teams. Our other presenter is Sheryl Kingstone, who's research director at 451 Research. Sheryl focuses on improving customer experience across all interaction channels for customer acquisition and loyalty. She helps clients make decisions regarding the use of technology, business process, and data to boost revenue and optimize business performance. Sheryl is a well-known industry analyst in the CRM market, and she has more than 20 years of passionate experience devoted to helping businesses cultivate the entire and eliminate customer frustration across sales, service, and marketing. And she has extensive speaking experience at conferences and seminars, and is quoted in many business and industry journals, and is a noted consulting experience for Fortune 1000 companies. So before we get in, we're going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Rob, and he's going to talk a little bit about who American Eagle is and what they do.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, all. And I just want to give a quick introduction to AmericanEagle.com. AmericanEagle.com is an industry leader in, as you can see, web design development, e-commerce, integrations, mobile solutions, post-launch support, hosting, security, and digital marketing. We are essentially a one-stop shop offering a full range of solutions for any organization looking to succeed in their online endeavors. We are a family-owned and privately held company with a long history of profitability and stability, and just cresting now over 370 employees. It's a huge number and been very successful with that. So since 1995, essentially when the first website that was created by AmericanEagle.com, we actually have completed more than 12,000 web projects for nearly every type and size of organization in almost nearly every industry, which we're a very diverse company. So including small companies, startups, Fortune 500, professional sports teams, including NFL, NHL, Major League Soccer, and also manufacturers of niche products. We are headquartered right outside Chicago in Des Plaines, Illinois, and we also have offices throughout the country, including Cleveland, Dallas, Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, Fort Lauderdale, and Washington, D.C. Our experience in the progress world, and in specific with their product Sitefinity, we have won numerous awards. We were just awarded the 2016 Site of the Year. For many years running, we've also been a Partner of the Year. So we've been a Progress Elite Implementation Partner for approximately 4 years. So our depth and experience using Progress, and specifically Sitefinity, among other software products from Progress, we've had very successful implementations. So our work speaks for itself, and now Sheryl will do her introduction.
Thank you very much, and definitely welcome to today's webinar around customer experience, the new business battleground. And it really is all about your customers, and so that's what we're going to be going over today. And when we talk about customer experience and where we're trying to go, it has a lot to do with the digital revolution. And it's happening, and it's not just for consumers. It's happening and changing a lot of the businesses. It's making impacts on how organizations are interacting with employees, with partners, and of course, yes, with customers. Because digital services and processes are really the underpinning of the revolution that's encompassing a lot of organizational strategies today. So as an industry analyst, I'm going to be going through what's happening with this digital revolution. And at 451 Research, we have a lot of data that helps tell our story. And when we talk about data and we look at the data, it really is all about the customer experience. So digital customers are demanding new forms of empowerment. A lot of the data we have is around self-service and digital. And when it comes to customers, they want to personalize their experience. They want to feel like they're more in control. And so that's all about new forms of empowerment. But then there's new forms of technologies that we have to look to embrace. And where the industry is taking a look at mobile or chat or what we would call conversational service, and that whole exchange around the business. And we're going to go through a lot of those technological changes here and the impact that has on communication with our customers, since most of the customers, again, do prefer digital channels. And so when we look at 76% of businesses are really looking to communicate with their customers because they're demanding that communication channel with their customers be either in mobile, SMS, or online, or the website. And that's really where the experience is all going today. And Rob, you're seeing this with a lot of your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. The stats here should not be too surprising to anyone. Even in retrospect of my own form of digital engagement, I've actually found that I personally engage with sites to actually figure out the path of least resistance before, the last resort of the plain old telephone system, as you mentioned. So, our customers are actually telling us the same things also, and reports from our clients' customer service teams also prove the fact that more consumers are actually using technology to communicate with them. This is driving them to seek digital partners like American Eagle to not only strategize solutions for their customer needs, but build, test, and measure, and then enhance their customers' online experiences.
In the way I like to look at digital transformation or the digital experience and revolution is a four-pronged approach. And our research really takes a look at it across these four quadrants. And so digital experience is, some of our research talks about it from mobile first. Yes, it's also omni-channel and potentially cloud applications. The point being is the digital experience is a key component to a lot of the transformation initiatives that are out there. And the way we look at it is that it's the new front door to all businesses. It has to be, though, underpinned by a strategy. And we're going to go through details around what's going on with the digital experience, the strategy from an executive leadership, how that is really happening and changing over the next couple of years. And with that, what we have to look at is the digital platform, whether that be cloud infrastructure changes, whether that be looking at machine learning and APIs to integrate with multiple different applications and backends and how that powers that digital experience. But then lastly, also around digital operations, because it really isn't about the platform or the organization or the experience. It's about how we're going to operationalize a lot of these digital technologies to become more real-time or prescriptive or personalized. And that's why if you put it all together, it is about a four-pronged strategy to inform your digital transformation initiatives. And when we take a look at now the digital experience, the next few slides are going to be peeling back the onion of that four-pronged approach. And first off, has to do with new channels of engagement. And when we look at them, it really is about unlocking the information that's generated across multiple different customer interactions and across different sources to meet customer expectations. So it isn't just about the channel, because yesterday's world was about one-way customer interactions. And today it's really about a self-directed, on-demand, two-way engagement on any device to ensure a positive experience, because customers want to communicate on their terms. That's what we talked about earlier around empowered customers, but it is important to make sure that depending on the overall context of the customer situation, yes, self-service might be right, but what are we doing within the mobile apps depending on the urgency and the nature to then escalate a lot of that interaction into other forms of communication? So when we do look at this data, I don't want to point out that the home telephone or email or online chat or website is declining. What's really declining is the fact that the overall shift is happening in the mobile world, and we have to look across how to engage in web chat as it relates to mobile experience, self-service, and assisted service as an SMS. And a lot of it is shifting. And the way we want to look at this chart is it's a 5-year preference. So when we look at it from 2010, actually 6-year preference, to 2016 now, a lot of the shift in first, second, or third preference is going towards the mobile channel. And that's what's very critical to understand around your digital experiences that you're trying to build for your customers. Because mobile engagement across the customer lifecycle is more than just a pretty little app that you're creating. It's about the customer lifecycle. So it's about being a mobile extension to your brand so that you're able to acquire more customers. It's about understanding how to provide value-added services so that they can engage and serve their customers. But it's also about being that constant companion to nurture. And the only way to do that, in order to really nurture that and grow it, is to use insight to personalize and enhance that experience. And that's really where we're trying to take a lot of the applications or digital transformation or digital experiences, is looking across this customer lifecycle. Some examples there are around customer onboarding, but other examples there are how we're servicing on the website and then going back into a mobile app or then transferring back through. And why this is really important has to do with the data that drives the experience and why mobile is really important in understanding personalization strategies. A lot of vendors and a lot of companies and a lot of consumers are reacting to a lot of the data that's out there about ourselves, whether that be on a website or whether that be on the mobile phone. But the critical element of all of this has to do with the data that drives that experience. And we do see that research shows that consumers are willing to share personalized information with their brand or their retailer that they're trying to interact with if it adds value. And that value comes at personalization, the value comes at better rewards. And so it really is about understanding how to deliver the right information at the right time. And that's where we see that 49% would really like to receive personalized information based on their immediate location. And a lot of our research is really coming about to how to do that correctly. So how do we make sure that we're balancing out privacy concerns along with meeting the goals and objectives around personalization and leveraging the all-time location-based information for these digital experiences. And when we do take a look at the data that drives these customer experiences and what's being very disruptive, when we look at the way our businesses are responding to a lot of our survey data. So these are businesses that are out there, they're IT decision makers along with line of business decisions around investments that's supposed to be that they want to make for customer experience technologies and what they anticipate as having the biggest transformational impact over the next 12 months. So a lot of energy is actually being put in place around social, but what's most important there isn't just the Facebook, the Twitter, and the Instagram word. We want to take a look at this. It's about engagement. It's about how we're engaging on these social channels and creating more of that two-way conversation. How are we personalizing that Facebook engagement? How are we creating our Twitter interactions much more personable, or creating stories in Instagram so that we're engaging with our clients in a different level, and we're going to go through a little bit more of that. Another thing I want to point out around this data has to do with real-time customer collaboration tools. So that goes back to the data that we had around different channels of interaction and how that's changing with respect to chat or video or SMS. And it all comes into play around mobile applications for customers, but we also are going to spend some time down throughout this deck also taking a look at personalization and the role that personalization plays for more of that one-to-one personal experience in digital marketing. And Rob, you see a lot of the data here as it relates to social and mobile and communication tools and why businesses are investing in a lot of these technologies.
Absolutely. Mobile is absolutely one of the most important features actually to focus on right now. And getting into the case study here about the Green Bay Packers, American Eagle actually had previous roots actually in the professional football website world. And then the NFL kind of took over kind of before this whole mobile revolution started and using social media. And, they took everything in-house onto a single platform. But what the platform actually lacked was, as fans started to buy and utilize mobile and social technology, were in having connected web browsers was actually delivering a unique and rich mobile experience. So in this example here, the Green Bay Packers were very proactive in recognizing this and recognizing their fan base needed more. They needed to be able to connect with their team more and be recognized. Having a mobile experience was behind the times, and the Packers had the foresight to see this, and it wasn't going to change on the platform they were on in the near future. So they reached out to us and actually engaged strategic services and development services to create and launch a very feature-rich, responsive, and intuitive mobile experience for their fans. The results were actually phenomenal, and compared to their 2014 season, when this launched in 2015, they actually saw an increase of 10 million more visits and approximately 15 million increased page views just on their mobile site alone, proving that the seamless, intuitive mobile experience does make a huge difference. So still today, just pull out your phone and go to your favorite NFL team, and you'll find they all still have the same kind of unique, antiquated experience. But it's folks like the Green Bay Packers who understand the investment in digital marketing and utilizing all channels, including mobile and social, for communications. And they saw this as a huge piece of their asset of fan engagement being far underutilized and really enhanced it to be the best NFL team mobile experience on the internet. They've actually expanded to even develop more experiences, including a Packers Everywhere app. So there's even expanding even more on the mobile and social platforms to utilize.
And the reason why it was so strong, if you heard what it said, is because they have a strategy. So the digital experience was absolutely critical to be seamless across multiple channels. And the fact that they had a strategy, they had strong leadership, and they had an attitude. And that's one of the major benefits of digital transformation is it's not just about IT. It's not just about the website or the mobile or any independent strategy that anyone is trying to embrace. It's about building closer relationships with your customers and understanding what their needs are. And businesses must make critical adjustments to those customer experience that align with the digital shift and remain relevant in the eyes of their customers or partners or employees. And that's what's really important, is that executives must have this disruptive attitude and strong leadership so that they can lead change within their organization. So a strong leadership is required to create a solid base for successful implementations of the technology, to take advantage of a lot of the data, a lot of the analytics that drives the experience, so that they can deliver, whether that's targeted content or personalized experiences across digital and even offline channels that we were going to talk about earlier. So it really is very important to have your digital organization behind it. And the good news is that nearly 1/3 of all businesses have some sort of formal digital transformation strategies. So the way to look at this slide is a lot of 33% have the formal strategy, but then 29% are actually actively digitizing that. And then another 20% have no formal plans. So we need to have more companies actually actively digitizing their business process, but the fact that 30% are in a formal strategy and then the other ones are actually in the process and planning stage is very strong, because we need to make sure that we look beyond these digital technologies and to actively understand the impact of how we're going to engage with our customers and partners and employees. And it isn't just about intelligent automation today to cut costs. It is about engagement and where we're trying to take a lot of the strategy. And what's interesting is when you take a look at the digital organization, the strategy that's underpinning it, and we look at it whether we cut the data that we have by line of business versus IT, And digital transformation, again, it's more than just an IT strategy. And what's interesting is that a lot of the line of business people don't feel their customers, or not their customers, but their companies are really embracing a formal strategy. And IT does. And the reason for that is the fact that a lot of disconnect is still out there with respect to the goals and objectives of the outcome of this digital transformation effort. And so we need to understand and bridge that gap between 30% of IT saying they have no formal strategy and 44% having no formal strategy. So what's most important is really understanding and getting line of businesses to embrace across a lot of the digital experience and the strategy, because that's what is most important. It's about the outcome and the use case, and it isn't just about the technologies, and it's definitely not just about the platform. It's about a holistic strategy around business expectations to meet a lot of the customer expectations that are out there. And diving down a little bit deeper into the data we have around digital organization and their strategies, when we do look at companies that have no formal strategies, this is when they answered that question they stated earlier, what I had stated earlier here. And then we dive down a little bit further here around understanding the companies that don't have a formal strategy versus the companies that do have a formal strategy. So looking at the ones that are differentiation on both sides of the fence, not the ones that are in between. And when we look at their strategy, the reasons for going down a digital transformation initiative has to do with, as expected, competitive differentiation. And when we look at the ones that don't have a strategy, they don't rank competitive differentiation. They look at other things that are going to be less strategic and more tactical. And competitive differentiation is one of the strongest business outcomes that you're going to have when you embark on a strategy, especially as it relates to digital experience and the platform that it plays. When we look at the size of the companies, a lot of these smaller companies are still struggling, but the minute you get to over 500 employees, which is still a fairly small organization today, I would put that more in the mid-market, 63% have more formal strategies. So the good news there is that the mid-market and larger businesses are truly investing in understanding how to digitize their business processes and technologies. Two more key takeaways here, a couple more key takeaways, has to do with where companies are on understanding where their pain points are. And what's interesting is it really is all about the data. So when you're managing data growth, that's when you're really going to embrace that for a formal strategy. So companies that have no strategy are still really focusing on those social networks and managing the risk of the social networks, and not necessarily understanding that the data that drives it is critically important into the personalization efforts, because it is all about innovation and how to leverage that data and technologies to drive a differentiated experience. And the verticals that understand this today are financial services, believe it or not, telecommunications, and also retail. Other organizations such as healthcare and manufacturing still care about digital transformation. They are just, I would say, a little bit slower in adopting formal strategies today. And when we do take a look at how to embed a lot of this digital experience and the strategy that drives it, that's when we do have to look at the platform of engagement. And a lot of companies have invested in what's called systems of record, whether that be your CRM system today or your ERP. And while these systems are absolutely critical for managing internal operations, they are potentially monolithic, and it's impeding a lot of these, what I would call systems of engagement that need to empower that digital experience. So now with the age of the customer upon us, we need to complement those systems of record with systems of engagement that are more agile to provide that frictionless customer experience. And that's where we see a lot of investments being made, so that we can break down those walls of systems of record, so that we can look at all the channels and the processes and complement new technologies, so that we can embrace systems of engagement to create a more idealized experience for our customers, again, partners, employees, so that we're digitally transforming based on a platform. So it really is about context that drives that quote-unquote omni-channel approach, and context-aware process-driven applications is what the future is all about. And intelligent systems, as well as the data that drives them, play an increasing role of the evolution of a lot of these customer-facing business applications, whether it be sales, service, or marketing. And that's really where we're really trying to take the future of breaking down these business processes. And Rob, you see a lot of insight around customers really trying to embrace systems of engagement so that they really can create an improved user experience.
Absolutely, and more companies, are having many different systems of records, and we aren't saying or telling anyone to dump those systems of record. A website or a mobile platform actually will not replace these systems. They're very important to your business. We're only asking you to use those systems or pieces of those systems as they allow, and bring those into your digital personalized experience. So by utilizing multiple systems of records, websites can actually push and pull all sorts of different dynamic data about a customer into a sleek and intuitive interface. For example, AmericanEagle.com actually we've been working with a very large, well-known global fast food franchise business. And believe it or not, some of their actual locations still use a cash box under the counter. But in this business, it was actually recognized that their necessary online systems need to be brought together in order to maintain a very consistent way for all 3,000 plus franchise operators to log on and actually run their stores on a daily basis. So from corporate messaging, employee training, sales support, sale reports, upcoming promotions, charitable giving back, all of these separate systems of records, are providing the data that is then fed into the personalized experience for that franchisee owner, whether he or she owns one franchise location or 200 locations. So the system, upon initial design and planning, and was actually presented and was instantly praised by the franchisees because they were so frustrated with all these different system of records on the outlier. They're all brought together now, and it's just a great forward step into the new business battleground, utilizing digital systems that were already in use for years. So this is just one example of hundreds, showcasing multiple lines of business, integrating with IT and building their plan for the digital experience future.
Thank you. I think it's a great example. And I'm going to touch on a little bit about some trends in the industry around machine learning and artificial intelligence very quickly. I know it is a little bit more forward thinking, but it is a large part of the digital platform of the future. And so the question is, I would say, is what do humans do best? We reason, we understand tools, we understand language, we have cognition, we have self-awareness. And so that is really what has held back a lot of the machine learning technologies that are out there. But that's changing. And what is changing is the successful understanding about how to mature these algorithms and move it forward. And why it's so important to the future of the digital platform has to do with contextually relevant experiences. I have a whole talk track around storytelling and the role that AI has on the future of the customer experience. But what is most important is the fact that the universe of knowable is really expanding, and technology such as machine learning can really help us as humans see further and deeper, because it helps us create a more personalized narrative to create and engage with our customers. And so that's what's most important when we talk about especially relevant of today's experience generation. Because today we don't compete on prices or products. I mean, yes, price is absolutely relevant, but if we look at our teenagers and we look at our kids, they're competing today around Snapchat stories and the experiences that they are sharing with their counterparts and their peers. And that's what we have to learn from. We have to learn from blending technologies and the stories so that we can start personalizing the experience. And where technology plays on that is providing, again, contextual experiences. And the good news is that 80% of businesses really state that machine learning is most important when we're talking about understanding more automated. It's the way of we're using data to start telling the story to provide more contextual recommendations to create a more personalized experience. Because it is all about putting it all together. And the essence of putting it together and the essence of putting digital to work in a transformative way is to understand that it is about an integration process. It's about understanding the content and managing the right insight to interact digitally. Because enterprises and businesses, they need to streamline their processes so that they can interact with their customers. That's the case study that you heard before, and it really does have to understand how to interact across multiple different applications to provide that omni-channel, context-aware, process-driven application in the future. And that's really where the combination of real-time data, prescriptive insight, and machine learning comes into play. Because when you really do put it all together for digital engagement, the way to look at this Venn diagram is the data, it can recommend a specific course of action. And if you put data together with intelligent automation, it's a data-driven automated process, and it helps provide actionable insight. But you want to make sure that you're doing it with what I would say systems of engagement to drive that dynamic experience. And then if you put the data together with the systems of engagement, and the data is actually, don't forget, in a lot of that transactional systems, that's where you're going to get your process efficiencies. So if you put this Venn diagram together and you look at a combination of data, intelligent automation, and systems of engagement, that's where you'll be able to get your process efficiencies with your dynamic experience, providing actionable insight. And the goal is really to have digital engagement. And when we take a look at being able to operationalize all of this, this is what's most important, is what are we doing to move beyond digital platform into the operations? And it really is about understanding those pain points. So when we do look at those pain points around priorities for addressing a lot of the business applications and digital experience, yes, it's about managing that data growth. As you heard earlier, when we talked about formal organizations trying to really embrace and manage that data growth, yes, it's also about managing the risk of inherent mobile messaging and social networks, but it is also about phasing out a lot of those analog processes and paper processes into more paperless and real-time interactions. And Rob, again, some of your case examples here go into some examples of why line of business is really prioritizing this.
Yeah, I mean, the reality here is setting in, and we're just communicating faster and actually more efficient with one another and with businesses. So you're right. I mean, managing the growth and the risks of all these digital practices isn't just inherently going to increase and phase out our old methods of communication.
The way I like to look at personalization and intelligent automation is the change that we're really having as we communicate with our customers in a new mode. And there is this old model of we used to create these millions of one story for millions of customers to read. It's the old newspaper model. And really, we've talked about switching all of this, and this is where personalization comes into play. But it's about creating these millions of stories. And when I say millions of stories, a tweet to me is about a story. How are we going to tell that right story on Twitter? How are we going to tell that millions of stories on Instagram, whether it's personalizing that content or the subject line or the header? So it really is all about an audience of one. And a lot of companies understand this as it relates to their personalization initiatives, whether that be contextual recommendations, as we said earlier, whether that be business process improvements, or whether that be personalization. And the way we take a look at this is, again, through understanding the different maturation processes of digital transformation within organizations. So when you have a formal strategy for digital transformation, you are highly more likely to be engaging in more sophisticated one-to-one personalization strategies as compared to organizations that have no digital transformation or even considering but no digital transformation plans. When we take a look at things like I said earlier around contextual recommendations, that's where significant differences come out, where companies that have a formal strategy are more likely to embrace contextual recommendations for their customers. And then when we take a look at business process improvements, again, there really is a difference between having a strategic look at where we are around digital engagement and where we're prioritizing our personalization efforts. And where I'd like to put this has to do with understanding. In order to personalize properly, you have to understand the right information, have the identity of the customer, and the insight that feeds it for those data-driven experiences. So turning data into meaningful intelligence is absolutely crucial, because where we're trying to go is through either that personalized individual experiences or what we call data-driven experiences, but they require information that's updated constantly, whether that be in the transactions or the events or the context, and tie that to a unique identity for each customer. In order to do that, you need to build a complete customer profile. And then that information and identity must be turned into some prescriptive insight. And in order to do that, that's where some of that machine learning algorithms come into play, so that you're really creating that identity graph. And Rob, you see some of this being undertaken within your own customers also, because it's so important to understand that identity.
Correct. All this technology is at our fingertips every day to engage with and collect. But we also have to, continue to pay attention to this data and how it also changes over time. So we must recognize that in order to keep our customers actually engaged with the technology that we're giving them and their personalized experiences, we must create and adapt and change, incentives, whether tangible or actually intangible, to entice them to return and use the digital asset as intended. So it's just very important to just continue to look at the data, see how it changes over time, but also be future forward thinking with those strategic initiatives in hand. And
it really demands more of a hybrid approach today. So everyone's thinking, well, is machine learning the only way to do it? And the answer really is no. It's not like you're going to throw out what you're doing in a rules-based environment today. It still adds a lot of value in personalizing the CX or customer experience through things like understanding your segments and understanding high-value customers or anonymous visitors. And that's really where we're taking a look at more of that predetermined rules-based, segment-based approach, and then augmenting that as a hybrid approach to more cognitive, so that you can really scale a lot of that personalization with limited human intervention that's more algorithmic and one-to-one. And that's where you can take a look at things around delivering insight-driven experiences that really can require more of that identity, and so that you can understand that overall intent, and it has a greater relevancy and effectiveness. But we don't want to underestimate the role that even a deterministic approach can play when you're taking a look at things around clicks or time spent or mouse movements or hovers. All of that are still really important to understand and where they're coming in from, such as geolocation or industry or even the email campaign source. But you're going to augment that with some more algorithm adjustments so that you can self-learn and it can adapt in real time and help augment where you're trying to go for those data-driven approaches. And there is an example here about understanding how to do this a little bit more dynamically, especially as it relates to dynamic content.
So as Sheryl mentioned, segments, with actual personas is just a very critical component to, starting the engagement process in a personalized digital environment. So all persons that we interact with have different needs, and from your company's perspective and a personal perspective. And the best way to start is actually to break down your audience into these segments and figure out their demographics, their pain points that they might have with your website or application. What are their identifiers as far as what they may be looking for? And finally, what may constitute a success for their actual visit? And once you have that foundation in place of, identifying your personas and your audiences, it'll drive all those requirements of your design. So once implemented, you can then test your audiences and strategies using multiple methods of data gathering that we've talked about here today, and then measure your results. If you're successful, great. If not, that's not necessarily a failure. Figure out why using the data, make small tweaks, and then remeasure until you hit that success.
And the good news is, why should you care? What's the whole point? We're coming to the close. We've given you a lot of information, but why should you care? Because it shows results. Combining and taking a look at personalization, looking at things like dynamic content, being able to drive more intelligent automation drives results. And so where we take a look at it is just in personalized website visits. We've seen 34% conversion. This is our research as an industry analyst, 34% conversion on Lyft when targeting visitors with specific industry data or content and where you're trying to go. It also can potentially increase revenue for visitor offerings. So it really is, whether this is even in a B2B scenario or a B2C, we've seen site personalization have a huge uplift. What you saw earlier about testing it, A/B testing and the ability to upsell of an offer, email conversions with less than 1%, if we make that and we test small changes, whether that be in-app, whether that be in email, we're really going to start understanding and testing to understand what works and what doesn't work. Taking a look at things around shopping cart improvements so that we can test even to the color what is going to make more an improved shopping cart experience so that we're able to capture more additional revenue. And one company did find that testing just the color of the takeout or the add to cart or the cross-sell reference added $3 million of additional revenue. And so that's what's most important here, is taking the fact that the personalization tied with the dynamic content, tied with the ability to do this a little bit more automated, really does improve results to the bottom line. And that's what it's all about. Because if you have revenue improvements with dynamic experiences, that's what's going to drive your top line. The cost reductions come in with more intelligent automation. And the bottom line, if you don't do it, someone else will. And there is a lot you can do to leverage even small pieces of engagement to have large improvements in the bottom line. And so the big key takeaway here, and I would suggest to start maybe putting in some of your questions that you might have on the data, because we're going to be coming to a close here, and I'd love to get at some of your questions, whether it be on how to do any of this or even if it's on the data. But the biggest takeaway I want to have is giving you a little bit of a checklist too. So what are you going to consider when you're looking at these digital platforms? How does it embrace things like business process automation? Is it open? Are you able to address the data? Think in a mobile app around digital signatures or dynamic content so that you can really understand and improve customer communications by pre-validating a lot of the information. And so these are just little things that new digital platforms are coming to play. But don't forget, everything is going mobile. And what are we doing to then enable those next generation mobile applications and with specialized processes that meet customer demands? Because it really is all about a frictionless experience, whether that be in self-service, whether that be in automating processes with your back-end customers and employees, or whether that be empowered digital personalized experiences. And so at this point, I do want to give you, again, the key takeaways of a digital revolution is about putting it together. It's about understanding that digital at work is about ensuring that the data and the insight are embedded into an intelligent process. And the end goal for businesses is really to phase out a lot of those manual processes that are creating a lot of friction in the customer experience. But it's also creating error-prone manual efforts that are driving up costs. And so in order to do that, we need access to the right information at the right time to be more responsive and immediate in the age of the customer. And it really is all about investing in new technologies and processes to enhance the overall customer experience. And so here is our contact information. So mine is at the top. Rob, you heard, with a lot of those great case studies and customer examples, part of American Eagle, and Chris, part of Progress, who actually sponsored today's website on your behalf. And I would love to be able to now answer some of your questions, so feel free to go in and put it into the webinar, and we'll be able to ask those questions there shortly.
So thanks everyone. I'll continue the plug to add more questions, and thank you Sheryl and Rob for the great content. We did have a few questions that came in, so I'll start with those, and we'll ask that you continue to add some. So the first one, Rob, this one I think is directed more towards you, but the question is, what would you say are the top issues people are asking for when designing web and mobile experiences?
I don't think we can say it enough that we've already said today, but the unique personalized experiences, for every visitor is just a very hot topic right now. And when I say that, I mean it's really giving contextually relevant content to the user, and also how that parlays into mobile. You can have your desktop site, you can have your mobile site. They're virtually on the same platform, but when you actually pull up a mobile site, we're able to hide and truncate certain information that shouldn't be really seen on the mobile device to really get that pertinent info up top and seen by the user. So that seems to be a very top issue, is really limiting, that personalized experience and giving them that pertinent information that they came to look for without having to search. And that's one major advancement we've seen with mobile devices, because we just had those little screens to look at, and getting that data into a clear state, an intuitive state for a person to read.
Okay, great. And while you were talking, we had two questions come in, both sort of related to personalization and mobile personalization. So I'll ask this first one: how are people handling mobile personalization by location when phones may now be in one city or state, but the provider's IP may be from another state? The example they give is, I'm from Denver, but my phone says its IP is from Idaho. So are either of you seeing or have any examples of how people are handling this?
A lot of the location-based personalizations that I'm seeing out there isn't easy to do. A lot of success has been leveraging a lot of the Wi-Fi technologies that is out there and the beacons that are out there, so that you're able to understand more context of where they are, and it isn't just about the IP address. So you really need to take into account when personalization works. We have a lot of success, for instance, in stadiums using beacons and the mobile app that's there. So that way you take into account more of the relevancy, and that really can drive a lot of the experiences. Now, a lot of the success with the beacons are really in pilot stages today. Things around battery issues are driving some concerns, and also managing a lot of the beacons. But that way you can really become hyper-local, and especially if you do it through an app where you can understand and you can authenticate the experience. That's where we're starting to see it. And then when you're going in store, a lot of times you're able to have them authenticate and watch what's going on in store, because again, you're at that hyper local location. And then geofences, when you go through a geofence, a lot of the success around those are really where you can get at it. So it's more than just this IP address that's being masked. If you're trying to do it, there are other ways to go around and use a lot of the hyper local scenarios.
And then and Rob, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, we have quite a few clients, using this type of service, and you're correct. It is hard based on your ISP IP address. Sometimes you might be in the state of Illinois, but your IP says you're in Florida. So completely understand that question, and we more so want to use location services that's built into most people's phones. And it's very important. A lot of people don't actually enable those because of battery life, and people just don't want people to know where they are in the country from a privacy perspective. But location services is huge, especially when you get into services, service offering websites. One of our clients, they have 600 franchises across the country and across the world. But when you open your mobile device and you want to find the closest location, it has to use those location services versus IP. So that's one way we solve that solution. But if they don't have location services actually enabled, then we just default them to have to use a zip code search.
Okay, so I'll go to, I mentioned there was another personalization. This one was more of which is greater. So the question is, will mobile or personalization have a greater impact on revenue as they look to build experiences?
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
This is
Rob,
both.
you want to answer first? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So my opinion is, both of these have a huge impact on revenue. But in my perspective, the correct order of this actually needs to be mobile friendly first, then you personalize. So getting that mobile experience down pat, like I said earlier about identifying your audience, your segments, that all drives your design and your mobile experience. But then as you're doing that, you also know the personalization levels and start small. But first and foremost is companies have to start adapting and getting their mobile presence solidified if they don't already have one present.
I totally agree. And it really isn't just building an app and forgetting about it. That's why I say mobile and personalization goes together. It really gets down to the degree of personalization. So you want to create a personalized mobile app, and then personalization that we're talking about here can be anywhere from that more dynamic experience, but it can actually just be very simple and more segmented to just drive that adoption higher. So it really isn't a one or the other, but you're right. Let's do the mobile first because the data does show that that's what customers want. They really want that mobile engagement.
Okay. So we had another question, and I think Sheryl, your checklist might help with this one. But the question is, what is the first step to individualize customer experience without machine learning?
Yeah, I want to stress that you don't need machine learning to do this right. You really just need to have a better platform and understand business processes. Think about where we are today with the customer experience and just customer friction points that are out there that we can look at eliminating. I would say that's really where you need to start. It isn't just about one-to-one personalization. I know we've been talking about it for years, but we've still been talking about it for years around trying to understand to not enter information more than once or tell information more than once, and to leverage the information on the website more effectively. So there's so many ways that we can look at new technologies that are more agile, that are actually more important than the machine learning itself. Once we get into more agile technologies, once we improve the content that we can leverage more dynamically, that's when we can start layering on machine learning technologies that help us scale. That's what it's all about. It's around leveraging our ability to personalize at scale. And until we're able to do it even at a segment level, I wouldn't worry about machine learning.
Yeah, I do agree. And, it goes to the old saying is listen to your customer. Your customers are going to tell you what they like and what they don't like. And if you see engagement go down, they obviously don't like something. Listen to the customer, but also look at the data that you already have on them and also processes that you can make easier for them without complicating, a process internally or externally. So being able to, the first step, in my opinion, the first step here to answer the question is identify your audiences. And then, who are those people within that audience and what are they trying to accomplish or what do you think they want to accomplish with that digital experience?
Okay. So that was all the questions that we had today. So I want to thank everyone for your time. Sheryl, thank you for the presentation on the insights. And Rob, really thank you for talking through some real world examples of how organizations are implementing these strategies. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.